Antibiotics are a medicine that slow down the growth of or destroy microorganisms. They have been used widely since the 1940s to treat many bacterial infections or diseases, some life-threatening. However, the overuse of antibiotics has caused many strains of bacteria to develop a resistance to the antibiotic used to treat it. Some strains have even developed a resistance to multiple antibiotics. This has unfortunately allowed bacteria that cause life-threatening illnesses to withstand medical treatment and deeming some serious infectious diseases once again as incurable. The microbiota in the human gut has also been negatively impacted from the overuse of antibiotics, which is a concern as the microbiota is essential in the maintenance of human health.
Antibiotics were first discovered accidentally by Alexander Fleming in 1928. While sorting through plates coated with Staphylococcus aureus bacteria, he noticed that one plate had mold on it and had formed a ring free of the bacteria. He found that a substance in the mold was causing bacteria in the vicinity of the mold to die. Antibiotics, however, were not introduced until the 1940s when Charles Fletcher, a doctor at Oxford Hospital, heard of the work that was being done by Howard Florey and Ernest Chain to isolate penicillin notatum from mold. Penicillin is the bacteria-killing substance found in mold that was able to kill off the bacteria in Fleming's lab a decade ago. Fletcher had a patient dying as a result of bacteria entering a wound, so he treated the patient with penicillin and the wound began to recover.
Antibiotics are natural substances that slow down the growth of or destroy bacteria. They are used to treat bacterial infections or diseases such as pneumonia, whooping cough, staph infections, and urinary tract infections. Antibiotics have been used widely since their first introduction in the 1940s. Often referred to as magic bullets, they're able to kill off bacteria in a cell without actually causing much harm to the cell itself. However, bacteria have been increasingly resisting antibiotics that were previously able to isolate or kill the particular bacteria. In some cases, bacteria such as Staphylococcus aureus are resisting the effects of multiple antibiotics. This is causing a public health scare on an international scale.
There are multiple factors that influence whether or not bacteria in someone will be resistant to an antibiotic. The two main factors, though, are the extent that the person has used the antibiotic and the predominance of resistant genes, which bring about proteins that have the capacity to protect bacteria from the effects of an antibiotic. If the colony of bacterial flora has no resistant genes, then the antibiotic will be able to successfully isolate or kill the bacteria and any infections that it has caused. However, if the bacterial flora does contain resistant genes and the person has regularly used the antibiotic, bacteria will be able to resist being killed by the antibiotic and to continue to multiply. The overuse of antibiotics is also a major cause of the increase in antibiotic-resistant pathogens.
Some resistant genes are able to resist the antibiotic by producing enzymes that are able to degrade antibiotics and make them inactive. Other resistant genes can cause the bacteria to alter or replace molecules that normally bind to an antibiotic, which essentially eliminates the antibiotic's target. Resistant genes arise in bacteria from a number of ways. It is very common for the resistant genes to be inherited by their ancestors or to arise from genetic mutations, which freely occur in bacteria, that will spontaneously produce a new resistant trait or strengthen an old one. Another way that bacteria are able to resist antibiotics is via the exchange of resistant genes from other bacterial cells nearby, which give the bacteria a defense against antibiotics. Exchanging genes is very common amongst bacteria. Resistant genes are carried on plasmids, so bacteria can exchange genes by swapping plasmids.
When antibiotics attack bacteria, the cells that are susceptible to the antibiotic will be killed and the cells that show resistance will usually survive. This happens particularly when the whole course of antibiotics is not taken, because the bacterial cells present will merely be overwhelmed by the power of the antibiotics. Many bacterial species have become resistant to antibiotics previously used to treat them. Some strains are even resistant to multiple antibiotics. There are 3 bacterial species that can cause life-threatening illnesses that are known to already be able to resist every antibiotic. These are Enterococcus faecoli, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Enterococcus faecali can cause blood poisoning as well as urinary tract and wound infections. Pseudomonas aeruginosa can cause blood poisoning, particularly in people with cystic fibrosis or with a weak immune system. And Mycobacterium tuberculosis causes tuberculosis, which is an infectious disease that often affects the lungs.
Staphylococcus aureus, sometimes referred to as golden staph, is a very common bacterium that is often carried in a person's nose or on their skin. In many cases, it is a harmless bacterium that causes abscesses or impetigo. It becomes serious, however, when the bacterium enters the body through an opening in the skin, such as an incision made during surgery. Once in the body, Staphylococcus aureus can cause life-threatening diseases such as blood poisoning, pneumonia, and vein infections. Some strains of Staphylococcus aureus are already resistant to every antibiotic.
The human gut is home to a number of different microbes that hold a crucial role in the well-being of humans. Components of microbiota include bacteria, viruses, and eukaryotes. These are known to interact with one another and also with the immune system, which influences the development of diseases. The complex community that is the gut microbiota contains numerous amounts of the different taxa. The microbiota plays an incredibly important role in the health and disease of humans, as it is involved in the harvest and storage of energy and a variety of metabolic processes.
Microbiota is usually stable within individuals as time progresses. However, the composition can change over time due to external disruption. The major factor causing this disruption is the overuse of antibiotics. Antibiotics have a serious effect on the gut microbiota in humans, and at present the evidence to support that major alterations of the microbiota arise following treatment with antibiotics is compelling. Some taxa will not recover after a treatment of antibiotics, and there is often an overall decrease in bacterial diversity in the microbiota.
Dr. Cowie, from your years of experience working as a micropathologist, what are some of the cases that you have dealt with regarding antibiotics resistance?
Antibiotic resistance occurs by misuse of overuse of antibiotics because the more it's used, the more chances bacteria have to become resistant. Majority of cases that I've dealt with are patients that are suffering from a cold or a flu, and many think that taking antibiotics will occur or at least speed up their recovery. In some cases this is not true because most respiratory tract infections are caused by viruses, so antibiotics won't have any effect.
What is antibiotic resistance?
Antibiotic resistance occurs when bacteria changes to protect themselves. They are no longer sensitive to that antibiotic. When this happens, antibiotics that previously would have killed the bug or stopped them from multiplying will no longer work.
How does a bacterium developing antibiotic resistance?
It becomes resistant to antibiotics by mutation. It can also develop through contact with other bacteria that passes their genes into other bacteria. This is called resistant strain. These changes occur allowing the bacteria to survive or resist the antibiotic.
What are superbugs?
Superbugs are bacteria that are very hard to treat. They are resistant to several different antibiotics. We call it MRSA, which is methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Many testing of superbugs are done from the urine called strains of E. coli, which causes urinary tract infections. The superbug is commonly found in hospitals.
Are there any way to help prevent antibiotic resistance?
Yes, just let your doctor know that you need antibiotics. It's really necessary taking the right dose of the antibiotics at the right time as prescribed by your doctor. Basically taking simple steps to avoid infection and prevent them from spreading.
Thank you.
The use of antibiotics has caused many significant health problems. The overuse has caused infections and diseases such as pneumonia and tuberculosis to resist antibiotic treatment methods, causing many humans worldwide to die from being infected. Their rapid use is also causing major disruptions in the gut microbiota in humans. However, we do not believe that the use of antibiotics has caused more problems than it has solved. The invention of penicillin in the 20th century is still, in my opinion, one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs in history. Numerous amounts of serious infections and diseases are still able to be treated with a course of antibiotics. In order to continue using antibiotics to treat such serious infections and diseases, and to slow down or even stop the occurrence of bacteria becoming resistant, humans need to be more careful and more informed when taking a course of antibiotics. We need to ensure that people are taking the full course of antibiotics and that doctors are not only informing their patients on the correct and safe use of these medicines, but also making sure that doctors are not overprescribing antibiotics to patients and are only prescribing them when necessary to treat bacterial infections and diseases.